Hey, good evening, everyone. Dave Wilson, the Ring of Hire Show. Hey, listen here tonight. I'm with my good colleague and friend Matt Lunny of Aston Carter in Jacksonville, Florida. How's it going, Matt?
Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, how you doing tonight, Dave? I'm excited about today's topic.
Is that where you're at? You're in that Jacksonville, right?
I'm in Jacksonville. Yep.
Is it hot?
It was 94 today. Yeah, it's getting there.
Oh, it's getting there. But everybody, tonight we're going to talk about just great interview questions and bounce some ideas back and forth. And maybe you have some good questions that you want to put up here that we might miss and say, hey, this would be a good question to ask somebody or any kind of advice. But we'll be right back after this video. I had to look at this, Matt. And Tuvia, glad to see you found another Floridian.
All right. How you doing, Tuvia?
Yeah, Tuvia, you changed your image. You changed your, I don't know. It seems like it's more square. It's got LinkedIn in it. He has it. It looks good. Looks good. So how's everything going, sir?
It's going good, David. How are you, sir?
Good. We were talking earlier about this. We're going to talk about the interviews, but today was just a day of resumes. It wasn't interviews. It was resumes. And whew, I'll tell you, like we said, man, my biggest thing before we get into it is 3-4 pages. I was like, wow, that was a lot.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I know we were talking about is like, keep them clean, especially with this day, the technology out there. Yeah. You put too much on there, it's just going to get clustered up into the software. And on our end, it looks just like a giant paragraph, and it's not as clear.
And I was always told that when you're doing your resume, even nowadays with the resume, that you actually want myself, yourself, people like that to actually question you, like have questions for you, like, wow, okay, that's a good idea. Like I'm going to ask her about this,
Yes, for sure. That's definitely a great thing to have. And, because you're not going to be able to put, I mean, you can, but it's going to be 4 or 5 pages and you might get a quick glance, but especially if you have a more technical job to put everything you do.
Yep, and I just make it interesting, make me want to question you, during that.
Yeah.
We have Kenny, great state of Texas. All right, Kennedy. All right, Texas. Woo, man, it's got to be hot in there too. I think it's like 120. Let's start it out. I was telling you some questions I looked at, and I love this book for everybody that would like to get it from Paul Falcone. He's on LinkedIn, and I've done an interview with him. 96 great interview questions. These are a little bit different. Let me just say different. So if you ever check this one out, I kind of like it. You're in your middle of your interview. Here it goes. Let me switch roles with you before we begin. When you hire people at your own company, what do you generally look for in terms of their backgrounds, experiences, overall style, and what do you like or dislike about interviewing candidates from my side of the desk?
I like it. That is a great question to ask somebody. To kind of flip the script on them.
It does.
So I think it's almost a little long. I think you could break it down, but
into 2 parts.
Kind of like we were talking about earlier is one great interview question is, hey, what do you like about working here? And why do you like interviewing people to come work with you? What do you look for in somebody that's going to be your partner?
That's a good one.
Day in and day out with this new job. Like,
I like that.
What type of person do you like to work with?
That is because it puts the question back. You can go both ways on that, and what I liked about that question there is switching roles. It's putting you in the spot if you're with that company of what are you looking for to fill your own job?
Yeah.
So that one, I like that.
You can almost tailor your answers that way after that. It's like, hey, this is what they're looking for. I'm going to tell them that.
Yeah, what style? That word style always gets me. Like, what style are you? Or, you know,
Maybe like
when
the
you
management style. Like, are you a hands-on teacher? What type of ways do you teach your team?
yep,
Do you approach every person differently?
that's
Some
what it is.
people
Because I
just
like
have a
I'm
checklist
hands
and say,
on.
"This is how I train."
That's how yeah. Because I'm hands on. I like
Yeah,
to train. I like to show. I'm more visual. That's me. You
the
know.
old do, show, tell method, always works.
But I don't think there's any wrong answer on that.
Yeah,
What style you are? You're not going to sit there and say, "Well, I'm a micromanager," right?
yeah.
You're interviewing.
All
You're
I do
not
is
going to
look
say
over your shoulder and correct you.
that. Yeah, right. Hey, I'm a micromanager. I'm really going to be on your ass, everybody. You know, I'm going to do it. Oh Jesus, the staffing shark is in the house.
Oh, Richard's back.
Tuvid. Look at that. There he is, the staffing shark in the house. All right, Richard, I'm going to put one back on you and Tuvia. And whoa, we got Bill in the house too.
Bill's here.
This is even perfect because now I got all these guys here, even Kennedy. What is one good interview question that you guys always like to ask when you've interviewed people? Richard, I bet I know what you're going to say. You're going to talk about, I know what he's going to talk about. But what would be a good question and something different? So I read this next one. This one was, walk me through your progression in your career leading up how you landed in your previous or your current role at your present company. I mean, it's different. And what I like about this book, Matt, is he gives you the openers, he gives you the question, then he analyzes the responses, what you look for, and he gives you all different ways they're going to answer it, and then why ask the question. So it's a really good question there. So when I hear, if I was to say to you, hey, Matt, walk me through your progression, your career, leading up on how you landed your current role at your present company.
Yeah. I'm a storyteller, so which I enjoy interviews being more of a conversation than a actual, back and forth type of thing where you're just answering, bullet point questions. I would go back about 10 years and how I met one of the supervisors I work with now. We worked together at a restaurant in South Florida, and then I would basically start there and lead up to what I did with that company.
That's good.
Then why I started looking for a new job and how I found them on LinkedIn and was like, hey, your company culture looks great. You guys, pre-COVID, going out to team outings, dinners, everybody was always happy. It's like a close family. What does it take to get there? And we kind of had that conversation. So that's how I got into staffing, honestly. 24
That's what I mean. So that would be a perfect. See, you're interviewing already, so that would be a good question for you right there.
Yeah, there you go.
And you answered it. See how you can answer it. What I like about these things, you can answer it with a question.
Yeah.
Bill says, explain how you are a team player. I like that one. You have to explain it. We talked about this before. Questions like this, I kind of like these newer ones and that too there, because you have to give an example.
Correct.
You can't just say generic, okay, well, I'm a team player. I play sports. I'm trying to think what I would say right off the bat.
I would give, again, I'm a storyteller. I'd give an example. I would say, there was one day I had a team, one of my partners was struggling with something that I excelled at. I had a few extra minutes. So instead of, getting ahead on my work, which I could have, I was a great team player, went to them and helped them with the struggle that they were having so that we weren't leaving anybody behind,
Right.
everybody could progress because I was, a little bit ahead so I could help them. Or even if you're the struggling team player, being able to ask for help for somebody that's better than you is huge as well.
It is. And I think that's a great response. Like you said, I like it. You have to give something back. You're not just.
Well, that's the old, does your company have good culture? That's a horrible question. Can you give me an example of how your company has good culture? And
then that'll really work. Richard, let's see. Richard's interview is a coffee or a beer chat. And what I want to respond to Richard is when I was staffing with the one company I was with, we staffed for Tesla. And I had told people before, Tesla, I kind of liked it because you had a group of questions, right? You had this resume. You would take the resume and you would just put it down. And you say, okay, we're going to have a 30-minute conversation here in an interview. by the time we're done, you're going to know me and I'm going to know everything about you.
Yeah.
And we just had the conversation. Before you knew it, you talked about everything anyway.
For sure. Absolutely.
You know?
I mean, having conversations like we do when we're on the podcast is the best way to do an interview. Is people are more comfortable. They're more likely to be open and honest with you. Now, that can be to a fault. With a staffing agency like us, we can kind of coach them through like, hey, don't go into this too much, especially like, tell me why'd you leave your last company, or why are you looking for a new job? You know, and then you get somebody firing off left field. Well, the management was horrible, this, that, and the other. Companies don't want to hear that.
You got to take the high road.
If they usually tell you that for that company, they'll tell you for the one before. You know, so as far as that part of it, just, you know, having that real conversation. But if you're interviewing with the direct company, know when to cut it off. If you're interviewing with a staffing agency, before you go on an interview, they should probably coach you on that, if not already. But there's you can disclose too much,
especially if you know the person that you're sending them to. I think it's great to do. Hey, look at that! You got a great response, Matt.
Thanks, Bill.
You got one for you there. I like how Richard said that never use a script, and that's what I told you about. Just conversation. I mean, you basically look at the resume and you know what kind of questions you're going to ask, and you want to see what they're talking about and if it matches. Kenny, we got a long one here. Let's see. I am on the flip side of the job seeker as a caseworker, but one of the questions I enjoy employers asking, give me a situation or a time, etc. This allows you to assess how a job seeker could respond to the real world situation of the job. Storytelling. Matt, you're killing it tonight. You're killing it tonight, Matt. You got, and that's well said.
I have one question I'm going to say for the end for the storytelling one. But for as far as storytelling, explain to me a time when this, and one of the things is, you know, if you're looking for a job, especially in this market, this day and age, you could be answering to somebody 15, 20 years younger than you. And especially if you're transitioning into new fields, one great question is, you know, tell me about a time you had to take direction from somebody who knew more than you, but may have not have as much tenure because they know that company or they know that job better than you.
I think that falls along with like Bill, Richard, and everybody with a lot of experience here and all themselves too, because when you have the experience, that really comes in hand.
Yeah.
You know, because like Bill said, let's see, my 22-year-old son heads to California tomorrow. To work for Tesla for a 12-week paid internship. Exciting. That is awesome. But I bet he is so excited. I can't even imagine going there. But it's like a pep talk, right?
Yeah.
But no, there's so many questions, and you know, feel free, anybody out there that has a really good interview question that somebody else might be able to use. Matt, here's one, and I like bringing these out. And this even gives you red flags, what to look for. And you can tell my notes. Look, my business cards are in here.
I know. I just typed mine in front of you know me.
All
yours in the books.
This one I like. And then what I like about he has how to get more mileage out of the question and this. But what was your favorite position, and what role did your boss play in making it so unique?
That's a great question,
isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, what was your favorite position? What role did your boss play in making it so unique? I can come right off the top of my head because I had two or three great bosses, really, that I could give examples to right like that because I understand the question.
I understand the question. The best role it probably wasn't the best role I ever had, but it was the best leader I ever worked for.
Okay.
Okay. You know, so it's kind of two-tiered, and it was just because his style of managing people was probably, and I know everybody says, you know, we're fair. This guy was the most fair person I've ever met, no matter what. Right. If you were his best friend and you did wrong, he checked you. If you did good, he praised you. And he did that for every single employee. And you could be the guy that's having beers with them, you know, every Thursday after work and have a great personal relationship with them. But inside the office, you would never know who that guy is.
No, you're right.
Because he treated everybody inside those walls so fairly, it was unreal.
It was unreal. Richard, I know Richard is very personable. Richard likes to really open it up with, tell about your family. Bring that up. Get the icebreaker.
Yeah.
You want to have that icebreaker. There was a part in the book here that what you just said before about be careful what you say, because some people try to get out, like when you say sports, you have kids, on the negative side. Like, that means you have young children. There's some questions, try to stay away. I mean, teach his own. Everybody has their own, but what is the directive of the questioning behind it if it's continuous about children? Politics, don't, that's a no. Red flag. Sorry, red flag. Politics.
Yeah.
But I don't think that really happens that much. But this is only in the book, so.
Yeah. I definitely agree with the whole politics things. Now they could use, depending on the company, because again, interviews should be conversations. As an interviewee, hey, what does good work-life balance mean to you? Does that mean, we're coming up on graduation time, and nowadays you can't just graduate from like high school. You got to graduate from, preschool, elementary school, middle school. And it's like, hey, my kid's got a 3:00 graduation.
Yeah.
Do I got to put in PTO for 2 hours to take off so I can go see that? Or can I, work late 2 hours during the week to make up for that? Or is it like, hey, get your job done by 3:00,
get
call
out.
it a day? What
I
does
think
work-life balance mean?
I think when you're having that conversation, when you're employees and you're a good leader, that would be like, I'd be like saying, when you leaving? 2:00, 1:00. I bet that's exciting, because I believe anything. I'm sorry, maybe because I'm a family person, but I believe family, you can bring that in there. I personally do. I think because it makes the person, I don't know, makes me relaxed when I can talk about my son, my family, what I do, what hobbies I do. I don't know. I think it can go all different ways.
Yeah.
This next one, we get asked as a general one. And at first I always thought, why just say it? I don't know if I like, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
I hate that question.
I know. I see everybody does. And it says, why ask this question? Is known as a showstopper because it triggers a candidate's wishful response. I get it. When candidates respond with a far out answer, like retiring to Tahiti or opening a bowling alley, then bring them back to reality. A good answer is a realistic response would typically show that candidate's long-term goal will be attainable after 3 to 4 years. Oh, come on. I don't know. Maybe.
Why are you asking 5? Yeah, I think with that question, the reason I don't like it is because, unless we've had this conversation, like, what does a career path look like?
Yeah.
If I'm coming into a company at a, mid to entry level job, what does growth look like?
Yep.
Can you show me somebody that has started at my role and where they're at, where the average person's at, where somebody that excels is at? I want to be with the person that excels. However, am I going to be able to get the metrics to be where the average person's at? I don't want to be in the same spot.
What's one of your favorite?
What's
one of your favorite questions that you feel your candidates not struggle on, but what do you like? One of them that you like and that you feel like they could do a little bit better on answering, if that makes sense.
With some of the questions that I ask, I try to keep it so conversational that I kind of let it go wherever the conversation takes me. Like, some conversations start off right off the bat, like, hey, I'm looking for this role. Us being staffing, I could have 8 openings that you might be good for. And they'll tell you right off the bat, hey, I want $21 an hour. I want a hybrid schedule. I don't want to work in the medical field. I'm open to construction. And so at that point, I'm just crossing boxes off right there. And then I might ask, hey, what does a good job look like to you? Without telling them what I have available. Like, if somebody could conjure up, like, hey, this is a great job for me, this is what I enjoy doing, what would that be?
I like what you're saying and what I'm reading here, because it all comes back to I like storytelling. That really, everything you've been saying is about coming back with saying something like a story of what you're saying. Richard, limited your questions on interviews. The more questions is a turnoff. Yeah, I think a conversation. It goes back to I kind of like that. This one here. What have you done in your present/last position to increase your organizational top line revenues? I think you should expect again, when you said about storytelling, you need to come up with something, not just basic. You should know these type of questions. What did you do?
Yeah.
Project management. What?
I'm going to revert back to the restaurant business because, I mean, that's what I was in more. But can you prove how you're going to answer that? What you're going to answer with, like, hey, I improved turnover from 125% down to 87%. Our food cost went from 30% to 27%. These are like measurable indexes that are good.
Right.
But at the end of the day, they could be making that up. So to me, it's more about the processes of, like, hey, how do you motivate a team? If you're going into a management role, how do you retain your staff? Like, what do you do as a leader that stands out, that's different than everybody else? Why would you want to work for you?
That's why. Did you just say, why would you want to work for you?
Yeah.
I like that one. I just had to stop when you said that. I was like, wait a minute.
I saw you.
Yeah, you saw me stunned there. I was like, why would I want to work? Okay.
I'm
going to note that one. I'm going to note that one. I like that one. We have Kennedy again. Another possible question I wish more hiring managers would ask: what is one short-term and long-term goal you want to achieve while working for this company? How do you intend to achieve this, and how can you get there? Here we go again. This falls into the question I just was coming in. What has been your most creative achievement? Basically, almost the same thing.
Yeah.
To give those examples, I think.
Yep.
I think you got to give those examples.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, if you know that, one of the big things too when you're interviewing, know the company. Know a little bit about them more than surface level. Most of the initiatives, especially if it's a bigger company, they're going to have them listed somewhere on their website, or any big projects will be in the news. That impresses the heck out of somebody that you're interviewing with.
It does. I think it does.
Yeah.
And questions like this, listen, if you're not prepared for questions like Kennedy just put up there, then you're not ready for an interview.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody asked me that question, my short-term goal is to gain employment. My long-term goal is to grow with your company. I'd like to know and understand what kind of different career paths you have. By coming in at this level, where can I go? Where can I move from here? How do I intend to achieve that? Working hard, doing what's asked of me, going above and beyond when I can, and being a good team player.
So right there, what you're saying, it's just coming right off, and it's natural. That's what people need to come up with. And Kennedy, thank you so much. These are the kind of questions, that you really need to think about. Richard, most numbers on resumes are bullshit.
Yes.
Well, no, he's telling the truth.
50-50.
50. Yeah, I mean, he's got
be able to talk about it if you're going to put him on there.
Yeah. This next one I kind of like is, what would your current supervisor say makes you most valuable to them? It's different, right?
Yeah. I mean, it might be your supervisor's the reason you're leaving. So
I know it could be. Well, that one wasn't asked. I'm leaving because it was a micro. What supervisor value to them? I mean, there's all kinds of, but these questions and what you're saying again, I'm going to go back to about that storytelling. You're telling, you're giving them examples. This makes you stand out. Like, okay, what have you done to help your supervisor? Did you on the P&L? How did you lower your costs on your P&L for supplies, from something simple to something bigger? The cost of a drug screening, anything like that. Can you save the cost? But how bosses make life easier. This next one, I like. What aspects of your job do you consider most crucial?
I mean, that's a good question. Again, I think a lot of it depends on the role that you're interviewing for. For people like us, it's our communication skills, active listening skills, the ability to talk to strangers. I mean,
man, you're doing pretty good tonight for an interview, Matt.
Thank you.
You interview very well. Everybody out there, hey, Matt, man, maybe the Ring of Hire show, man. We're doing for Matt.
I've always nailed interviews. Not always, but for the most part. But I've always had that personality of just talk to people and, you know, have conversations with them. I mean, me and you. Oh, whoa, hold on one second. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
We have motion activated lights. I guess I haven't moved enough.
What's one of your favorite interview questions? If you had to say, like, what do you like to ask in your field of accounting? What's one of them like?
So one of the questions I like to ask is, you know, why do you do it? You know, accounting and finance can be very mundane jobs, especially some of the lower level ones, and you're just crunching numbers all day. I mean, there's some communication, but not a lot. A lot of it's just, you know, looking at screens, making sure numbers match up, putting them on general ledgers, reconciling them, investigate. You know, some of it is like, hey, I like to investigate when something's off and find where the issue was. There's a lot of different questions. One of my stolen questions that I was actually asked in my interview for this job, that I think is great, is what do you relate with more? Do you love to win or hate to lose? Now, especially if you're going in a sales job or something along.
Yeah, sales, definitely. That's definitely, you like to win. I like to win. I like to lose once in a while because I can't be the best at everything, you know, but
I think my answer for that was like 5 minutes long because I was like, man, I love to win, but if I learned something from losing, there's a lot to say there.
Yeah. And I've lost. I don't, it's okay to say it that way. I've lost, but I'll tell you what, like I told you when I had with the company and I ended up closing it, wow, it hurt. But you know what? The value that I gained, what I learned how to start a company again, man, I know what I did wrong and what I would do this time.
Yeah.
You know, you learn from it. Richard has. Also, don't forget to make the interviews relaxed. I meet all my candidates with flip-flops all summer. Just keep it real. You know what? Anymore nowadays, it wouldn't. Listen, I believe Richard. I believe Richard for that. Trust me, I believe him. Nothing surprises me. Nothing would surprise me.
How many virtual interviews do you think people have a nice shirt on and they're wearing board shorts or sweatpants or?
Especially in the beginning.
If you are interviewing people, please remember, even if it's virtual, it's still a professional interview.
Yes.
Make sure you don't have crazy posters in the background. Make sure your TV's off. Your dog's not barking. You know, you're wearing a professional top.
I always figure that, again, it's first impression. I'm sorry. I like being at my desk. I feel comfortable at my desk. It's my zone. Would I do an interview in a car, like on a cell phone? If I had to, but I would be sure enough. I want to get home and do it. I want to be somewhere comfortable, somewhere, you know, representable for myself. I want to show that leadership. I want to talk about what I think I know. And you would be able to say, I think he knows what he's talking about, if that even makes sense. But I just think it comes across. First impressions are big. I'm just going to say it like that.
Yeah.
You know, it's okay to be nervous. I'm nervous. I've gotten nervous. You know, I'm sure you have on interviews. Who doesn't, man? When you're sitting there and you get a question, you don't know what to answer. Wow.
And then sometimes, you know, depending how analytical you are, you might overthink it.
Yeah.
I had a candidate lose a role because they were asked a question like, hey, what do you do when you miss a deadline or when at your end of month close your numbers are off? And repeatedly she answered the same thing. My numbers are never off. I make sure everything's tight. Everything's always going to run. It's like, well, what if something happens? How do you address that?
Right.
And she kept answering like, I'm not going to be off. And I was like, and she literally lost the job to somebody else because instead of explaining, like, anybody in the accounting world knows, like, when you do end of month close, there might be discrepancies. It might take you longer than you think because, you know, especially for some of these huge companies with different revenues.
Right.
If there's things that aren't in your control. If you have another team that hasn't finished their stuff, you might not be able to finish yours in time.
Yep.
So to sit there and continuously say, like, you're never going to be off, instead of like, hey, if I'm off, I'm going to, you know, address it and try and fix it as quickly as possible or something like that. Just to be like, I'm never going to be off. Like, that's not possible.
No. I have a question for the host and the guest. What are always you can get an introvert to open up and share more during an interview? Go ahead, and I'll answer that too. Go ahead.
Being personable, I think, relating to them, trying to find out more just than what they know, but finding out about them. What their goals or what their interests are, what they're looking for, what they like to do, other than just asking interview questions, having conversations with them, and then relating to them. If they're introverted but they love baseball, oh great, yeah, who's your favorite team? Ask them questions up front to make them feel comfortable with you as a person, so that they feel comfortable when it comes to answering questions, business related.
Mine is I always say, listen, okay, we're here. You can see they're a little nervous or anything. Okay, if I had a group of your friends and we were outside and your friends came up to me, what would they say about you? What would they say about you? What kind of person are you? Believe it or not, sometimes you can see that person just sprout and they'll say, well, I'm very responsible. Some of them start laughing because they start, all of a sudden it sparks something like, well, I tell jokes all the time, or, something like you said, something to make them feel normal. I do like about the sports and all that with kids too, but
yeah,
make it real.
Just like anything, I'm sure when you're looking for a job, if they have social media, LinkedIn, I mean, I don't have a ton of social media, but you can see something on their social media that you relate to. Even if it's something like, hey, you're from this area, I know a guy from here. I doubt you know him, but do you know Joey that works at this company or something like that? Just anything to relate to somebody, I think, makes the interview more personable and helps introverts open up.
Well, I like it too. Even on the resumes, I'm still a firm believer. I'm sorry. I like the part about hobbies. You used to be able to put your hobbies down.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to say likes, dislikes, anything like that, but you would put your hobbies down, volunteer work,
Yeah.
I really like that. So if I see something like that on somebody's resume, I'll go to that first. I'll be like, wow, tell me about, you volunteer at fire companies and, you do all kinds of things. I bet you work a lot of hours and donate a lot of time, anything personable.
Yeah, for sure. Anything that's personal will help somebody relate.
Yep.
Bill.
All right, Bill. Thank you, Bill.
Yeah. Congratulations again with your son, Bill.
Yeah, congratulations. That's great for him. But this other one here. How have you added value to your job over time? That's kind of general in a way. Like that's just to me that would be like saying, hey, anything you can say that you helped or you assisted, you increased the revenue or on your P&L, bring those questions out. Remember those, study those kind of things, what you've done for a company. How did you increase staff, Matt, by 20 people? What did you do?
Yeah.
Those are the kind of
just made me think of a question I love to ask too. And it is towards the end of a lot of interviews. I ask people, whether it's a job I have 100 openings for or a job I have one opening for. I'm like, hey, here's your chance to brag about yourself. Tell me what you've done in the past and why you're going to be the best candidate for this role. And, a lot of people's like, well, they'll start slowly, but then I'm like, oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that'll definitely relate. And then they keep going with it.
That's true. I get it. Yeah, and they will, and they'll keep going. I remember what you were saying before about saying too much and rolling on. Like that just reminded me, like you're rolling on and on your mind. You're saying, I should shut up. What am I doing? What am I saying? Over and over. But we got Daryl in the house. Daryl, all the way in Texas. Daryl, I'm sure always has a question here.
103. Everybody's talking about the temperature.
See what the weather is. This one, I got a couple more for you, and then we'll go. How have you had to reinvent or redefine your job to meet your company's challenging needs? That simple. How have you had to reinvent or redefine your job to meet your company's changing needs? So to me, that would be a question of some things that I took a tool maybe and turned it into something else, like utilized it for something else. That would be me. I would say.
So that is a very interesting question because it made me think of two different people that I've recently worked with for new roles. one started off at a basic small construction company, and they were just like an accounting clerk doing accounts payable, receivable, some secretarial work. And then their CFO / accounting manager, her boss, up and left. And so pretty much on the fly, she had to learn how to do everything there. Now, it wasn't a huge company. It was like 300,000 in revenue. They used QuickBooks, so it wasn't a very complicated software, but she had to teach herself everything. And then their HR person kept trying to find somebody, but they never found the right fit. And I was like, at any point did they say, hey, why don't you take this job and find you an assistant to help out with the overload like you were doing for your boss before that? And she's like, no, that's why I'm looking for a new job. Fair enough.
But yeah.
And then, just people kind of seeing a place in a company where there's value or benefit for a role that may not exist, and kind of manifesting yourself, whether it's you saying it to somebody, be like, hey, don't you think we should be able to do this? Or doing it and being like, hey, our office is doing this and we've increased production here. If I stepped away from my responsibilities I have that I was hired for, and I just focus on this, we can improve this on a whole new level for offices, and just kind of manifest and create that own role.
Matt, you're hired. You're hired, man.
I'm not the one that did it. I
know, but I feel like you're answering these things better than with the book. No, but you're doing good, man. I like it. One more question for you, Matt, on your live interview here. No, and I like your answers, and they're all true. They're, like we say, everybody, there's no wrong or right answer, but these are kind of questions that, again, 96 great interview questions. Paul Vacani, right on LinkedIn here. I love this book. There's so many here, Matt, but the last one here is, I like this one, is what kind of mentoring and training style do you have? Do you naturally delegate responsibilities? Do you expect your direct reports to come to you for added responsibilities? I think that's broken down to too many. But what kind of mentoring and training style? Excuse me. I like those words like that. Mentoring. What kind of mentoring and training style do you have?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to read that after we think.
Yeah, I was like, that's a long one to read. Yes, as far as the mentoring style is just, I think being authentic and truly wanting to help somebody is always the best mentoring and training style for that matter.
I like the word. I like the word mentoring.
I think there are people that are great at their jobs, but are not great teachers or great leaders. They could, excel 100% at certain things, but when it comes to mentoring or training, that's just not. It's not in their realm of thinking. It's not in their ballpark. It's just not in their comfort zone.
Especially if they don't want to train, or you don't know.
I don't know if it's they don't want to train. I just think,
it's the person. It's you're right. Yeah. I get it. It can go, like you said, mentoring, training. It depends on the person. As a question, I think that almost comes back to, like we talked about, what type of person, how you manage. You know?
And what's the role for?
Daryl says, everyone says use metrics, but if you aren't given number of performance, and how do you make those up? They do the work, but are provided information about increase of revenue or other items that say they contributed. The metrics, if you're given a number or performance info, how do you make those up? Going back
to just say the restaurant industry or even an accounting role. If one company's standard is to process 100 invoices a day, and they know that, they can be like, oh, I did 120. So it looks like they're higher. They've done it higher. Right. And until they actually get the job, there's no way to prove them wrong. And processing, invoices could be as simple as one step of just matching numbers, or it could be three-way matching, or it could be imaging. So some people may have a lower number, but their process is more involved.
I like that though.
And also, like, as far as, performance numbers, just say revenue, for example. I don't have access to another company's revenue. If they're a publicly traded company, I might have access overall. But if I'm looking for a job as like a general manager at a restaurant, which, that's the biggest thing I can relate to. Right. And I can say, hey, I increased revenue by 12%. You're not privy to those numbers to see that. And most companies will have some sort of clause that if you let that information out, because especially if it's a public traded company, that's insider information. And so there's no real way to prove that.
That's what I mean.
You can discuss how you possibly did it, but you could say, hey, I increased it 5%, but say instead I increased it 7%.
Yep.
But without those actual factual numbers in front of you, there's no way for that person interviewing to know exactly those metrics.
I like that question. It's hard. I was reading it over and over too while you're talking too, and I'm like, I agree with what you said. Everyone uses metrics, but if you aren't given number of performance, how do you make those up? So he's like saying there too is if you don't know, you're only producing that amount.
Yeah,
you don't know what the exact amount's supposed to be to increase revenue. So that comes down to training. I think it comes down to communication. I'm not sure if that all comes out in an interview. I'm not sure, but it's a good question. It puts me in my tracks.
Yeah. I even had an interview that I did one time. Shortest interview ever. I was living in the Orlando area and I drove up to Jacksonville. Now I'd done a phone screen with a recruiter, a phone screen with an internal recruiter. And they're like, you're meeting with the district manager, 10 a.m. Meet with him. Interview's probably going to last an hour, and we'll go from there. Perfect.
Right.
Drive up 2.5 hours. He's sitting there on his laptop looking at whatever. Closes his laptop. How you doing? Tell me a little about yourself. Go through the whole, 2-minute spiel. He asked me 4 questions. Gave him answers. He says, do you have any questions? I said, I have a couple questions. He's like, please don't give me these typical interview questions like, what's the growth pattern of this company? Or I forget exactly the wording. The interview was done in 10 minutes. And I was like, man, I bombed that interview. End of the interview, he said, hey, I have 5 interviews for 3 spots. My last interview's Wednesday at 3:00. You'll have an answer by then. It was about a 5-minute drive to 95 to go back to Orlando after I drove 2.5 hours to interview.
Right.
Before I got on 95, I got a full offer for what I asked for.
That quick.
Moving package, everything. Yeah.
Oh my God. That probably doesn't happen a lot.
I was
sweet.
super shocked.
Wow. But, I have provided training and mentoring, some by showing them, make them stand in the heat and feel the flames, but I'm always available to ask for help, and that's Daryl. I could picture. He's in the industry there.
Yeah.
That's there's only so ways you can provide training and all that. But that's a great, thank you, Daryl, as always, for the questions and answers there. I want to thank everybody again. Me and Matt were talking about interview questions. I mean, there's no wrong or right answer, but I just think you need to be prepared.
For sure.
You got to be prepared. You got to put some thought into some of these kind of questions that you're going to be asked, or else you'll bomb that interview. But
and have questions that you want to ask as well.
That's what I think. That's a great point there. Questions back to the questions. Like you said, you can go back and forth on one question. You could just go back and forth for 15, 20 minutes. And before you know it, your interview is almost over because you're up to like 45 minutes, But this is a great book, again, everybody, from Paul, 96 great, right on Amazon. And I don't know. You answered them very well. So you did great tonight. I think I'm going to hire you, Matt.
Yeah, I think, Dave, you should get some money for plugs, man. You're always plugging a book every time we do a podcast.
Yeah, I was like, there we go.
Go off my one page of notes and have conversations.
Yeah, well, the next show will be about the other half here. I got checkbook. There's part of my check, business cards, and you really got to educate yourself. And I think as the interviewer, you need to really show something too that you've done your homework. Like you said, that interview you had there wasn't much time put into it. Maybe that was the way he is. Who knows?
Yeah. Looking after the conversation, the internal recruiter, he's like, well, I asked a lot of the questions up front that he already had answers to, so he's not going to ask you the same questions again.
And that was it. All right. Well, Matt, I guess we'll probably talk next week. We'll come up with some other new topic. And again, everybody,
I like your idea about reading a book and doing something there. So definitely intrigued about that.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, we got some great things coming up, some great people, and like I said, I want to do that 100 communication about no internet. I'll let you know about that. But looking forward to it. And again, Matt, thanks. If you want to give a plug out what you do, Matt.
Yep. I'm a recruiter with Attn Carter, specializing in accounting and finance. I'm in Jacksonville, but we're a nationwide company. Support Alabama, Georgia, and Florida. But, if you're in California or somewhere else, and you're looking for something, I can get you connected to the right people, or maybe a remote job. So also, Dave, I also wanted to point out, I know it makes our day a little bit longer, but I think doing these later ones are better because we have more interaction from the guests.
See, I told you, when you do them at 6. Kennedy, thank you so much. I enjoyed the show, and I hope to take what I learned here and convey it to my clients for their mock interviews and have questions there. Kenny, again, look at that. I'm giving a plug. Reach out for this book, Kenny. Rate Paul. Reach out there, message me, and I'll send you the information.
Appreciate the questions, Kennedy.
Yes. All right, sir. We'll talk to you soon, and have a great night. Be right back after this.
All right, David, thank you.